Darkness has a way of whispering secrets. Secrets buried in forgotten rituals, in chants spoken beneath blood-red moons, in ceremonies that defy the boundaries of life and death. Tonight, we step into the abyss, uncovering 10 of the most notorious satanic rituals in history. From the eerie echoes of Black Mass to the unholy rebirth of the Ragnarök Rite, these are rituals whispered about in fear, forbidden in the light of day. But here, in the shadows, we dare to explore them. Are you ready to see what lurks beyond the veil? Before we begin, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because the darkness is vast and we've only begun to scratch the surface. Now, turn off the lights, listen closely, and whatever you do, don't look over your shoulder. Let's begin. 1. Black Mass, a ceremony of blasphemy and terror. The candlelight flickers, casting monstrous shadows against the damp stone walls. A hooded figure moves in silence, arranging a grotesque altar upon which lies a tarnished chalice, filled not with wine, but with something darker, something warm, something still glistening. The air is thick with incense, yet beneath it lingers an unmistakable scent, earthy, metallic, the unmistakable perfume of spilled blood. This is no ordinary ritual. This is the Black Mass, a ceremony so shrouded in fear and infamy that even whispering its name once meant risking the stake. A perverse inversion of the sacred Catholic Mass, the Black Mass isn't merely an act of defiance. It is a summons, a call into the abyss, a night where the lines between human and demon blur into the unknown. The origin of darkness. The origins of the Black Mass are lost in the fog of medieval paranoia, whispered in the corridors of the Inquisition. Some say it began with disgruntled priests who had fallen from grace, their faith curdled into blasphemy. Others claim it was a secret weapon of the European elite, performed in candlelit chambers to secure power through dark forces. But one account rises above all others. A tale from 17th century France, where the infamous sorceress Lavoisin conducted black masses for the highest ranks of nobility. These were not mere rebellious ceremonies, they were acts of sacrilege so heinous that even hardened men trembled at the sight. Newborn infants were sacrificed upon altars of black velvet, their lifeblood offered as a libation to the Lord of the Abyss. Their tiny cries, it was said, were smothered beneath the chant of inverted prayers. One night, during a particularly vile mass held deep within the catacombs of Paris, an unspeakable presence reportedly manifested. The candles flared violently, their flames burning an unnatural green. The walls, once still, seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like the lungs of some unseen beast. Then from the darkness, a shape emerged. A figure impossibly tall, its face obscured by shadow. A scent of sulfur choked the air as a voice, neither male nor female, echoed through the stone vaults. The pact is sealed. Those present swore that the floor beneath them quivered, as though something beneath the earth had just awakened. A ritual of the damned. The structure of a Black Mass is grotesquely familiar, a mockery of the sacred. The crucifix hangs upside down, defiled with foul substances. The holy prayers are spoken in reverse, their meaning twisted into sinister incantations. A priest, an outcast from the church, or worse, one who still wears the robes of piety, leads the congregation in a chant calling upon dark powers to grant earthly desires, wealth, revenge, lust, power. But there is always a cost. Participants often report a change in the atmosphere as the ritual progresses. The air becomes suffocating, pressing against their chests like an unseen force. The shadows, once static, seem to move of their own accord. The very walls of the chamber grow colder, as if something beyond human comprehension has entered the space. And then come the whispers, distant at first, indistinct murmurs slithering through the air. But soon they grow louder, more urgent. They whisper names, desires, secrets that no one else should know. Some claim to have seen eyes staring from the void, red, unblinking, watching, waiting. A curse that never fades to this day. Tales of the Black Mass persist. In remote forests, abandoned churches, and hidden chambers beneath grand estates, rumors whisper of rituals that continue in the dead of night. Witnesses speak of hooded figures disappearing into the darkness, of animal carcasses arranged in unsettling patterns, of symbols scrawled in blood upon desecrated altars. Those who partake often report a lingering unease, an unseen presence that follows them long after the candles have been extinguished. They hear knocking in the walls, see figures standing at the foot of their beds in the dead of night. And in their dreams, they hear the same phrase over and over again. The pact is sealed. The question remains, are these mere performances of rebellion, or do those who kneel at the unholy altar truly summon something beyond the veil? And if they do, what follows them home when the ritual is done? Would you dare to witness a Black Mass in person? Or would you run before the final prayer is spoken? 2. Satanic baptism, a dark initiation into the infernal path. The dim glow of black candles flickered against the obsidian walls, their flames casting eerie, twisting shadows that seemed almost alive. The air was thick with incense, an intoxicating blend of myrrh and sulfur that clung to the senses, making every breath feel heavy, oppressive. At the center of the chamber stood a massive altar draped in blood-red cloth. Before it, a figure knelt in silent anticipation, their white ceremonial robe a stark contrast to the darkness that surrounded them. This was no ordinary baptism. There was no holy water, no hymnals, no promise of salvation. Tonight, under the watchful gaze of the horned sigil above, they would be reborn, not in the light, but in shadow. A low guttural chant began to rise from the congregation, a rhythmic incantation spoken in a language ancient and unknowable. At the altar, a figure in flowing black robes stepped forward, his face obscured by the mask of a snarling beast. He was the officiant of this unholy rite, a disciple of Anton LaVey's doctrine, and he carried with him a chalice brimming with thick crimson liquid. The initiate lifted their gaze, eyes wide with anticipation, or was it fear? The officiant raised his arms, his voice echoing through the chamber. Tonight, you are cast off from the chains of the false shepherd. No gods, no masters, no saviors, but yourself. The congregation hummed in agreement, the sound vibrating through the walls. The initiate's heartbeat pounded like a drum in their chest. The officiant dipped his fingers into the chalice and smeared the dark liquid across the initiate's forehead, forming the sigil of Baphomet. By the blood of your will, he intoned, you are no longer a servant but a sovereign. A sudden gust of air snuffed out the candles, plunging the room into blackness. Then, from the shadows, something moved. A whisper, a rasping breath, so close yet unseen. The initiate gasped but dared not turn. The presence was behind them now, its warmth crawling up the nape of their neck. The officiant spoke once more, his voice a mere whisper now. Do you accept your rebirth? The initiate swallowed hard. Somewhere in the darkness, unseen figures shifted, waiting for their answer. Finally they whispered, I do. The chamber erupted in thunderous applause, yet beneath the sound, a low growl rumbled through the air, something inhuman, something pleased. The candles flared to life once more, and the congregation stood grinning, their eyes alight with something far more sinister than mere celebration. The initiate had been baptized, not into faith, but into the abyss. And from this night forward, they would never walk alone again. But the question remains, what if something answered during the ritual, something ancient, something hungry? Would you dare to speak the words and risk inviting the darkness to follow you? 3. Infernal invocation, calling upon the lords of the abyss. The hour was near. The air inside the candlelit chamber was suffocating, thick with the acrid scent of burning sulfur. The walls were lined with dark sigils, ancient names scrawled in dripping ink. Astaroth, Belial, Leviathan, and others whose very mention sent chills down the spines of the uninitiated. A lone figure knelt in the center of the circle, hands trembling as they traced the sigil of Lucifer into the floor with a ceremonial dagger. Their heart pounded in their chest. This was not a game. This was not mere rebellion. Tonight, they were invoking something older than time itself, something that had been called by desperate souls for centuries. The ritual leader, cloaked in heavy robes embroidered with infernal symbols, stepped forward, raising a massive tome bound in cracked leather. The Infernal Names. A collection of adversarial figures compiled in the Satanic Bible meant not to be spoken lightly. The congregation formed a circle around the summoner, their voices low and rhythmic as they began the chant. The words slithered through the air like living things, their meaning lost to time. "Hail to thee, lords of the pit, we call thee forth from shadow and fire." The flames of the candles flickered violently. A sudden gust of icy wind, unnatural and sour with decay, snaked through the room. The summoner clenched their fists, their lips parting to speak the final name. "Lucifer, morning star, I call upon thee." Silence. For a moment, the only sound was the distant drip of melted wax. Then, the temperature plummeted. The flames of the candles elongated, turning an eerie shade of blue. A thick, unnatural darkness oozed into the corners of the room, stretching and twisting like living shadows. And then, the whispering began. Dozens of voices, layered over one another, speaking in tones both guttural and serpentine. Some hissed in laughter, others growled in low, throaty warnings, and one, deep, resonant, and filled with amusement, spoke directly to the summoner. "You have called, and I have answered." The summoner's breath hitched, the shadows moved. A figure, barely distinguishable from the darkness, loomed at the edge of the circle. Its outline was shifting. Wrong. Something humanoid, but far from human. The ritual leader stepped back, his eyes wide with something between awe and terror. "You are heard," he whispered, his voice unsteady. The entity inched forward, its presence overwhelming, suffocating. It did not need to step fully into the light for them to feel its grin stretching impossibly wide. "What will you offer in return?" A cold sweat broke across the summoner's brow. This was not merely a ritual, this was a pact, and something in the shadows was waiting to collect. Would you dare to speak the names of the damned and call forth what lies beyond the veil? But more importantly, if something answered, would you be ready for the cost? 4. Destruction Ritual, a pact of fire and fury. The room was silent, save for the slow, methodical carving of a name into the wax of a black candle. The air was thick with the pungent scent of burning incense, an oppressive blend of myrrh and brimstone. Shadows stretched unnaturally long across the walls, as if something unseen was lurking just beyond the flickering candlelight. At the center of the chamber stood the effigy, a crude figure crafted from cloth, wax, and strands of stolen hair. It bore no face, but its presence was unmistakable. It was him, the one who had wronged her, the one who had taken everything. The ritual leader, draped in heavy robes, handed her a dagger. Its blade was dull, ceremonial, but it still felt heavy in her grasp. "Tonight, your wrath takes form," the leader murmured. "Tonight, your enemy feels what you have suffered tenfold." She swallowed hard and stepped forward. Around her, the other participants hummed in low, rhythmic tones, their voices merging into something primal, something ancient. She pressed the blade against the effigy's chest. "By my will, by my fury, by the infernal fires below, I curse thee." The candle flame shuddered. A sudden gust of wind howled through the room, though the windows were sealed shut. Her pulse raced. She closed her eyes, picturing his face. The anger, the humiliation, the night spent awake, seething. It all funneled into the blade, into the effigy. With one swift motion, she drove the dagger into the effigy's chest. The flames surged high, licking the ceiling, turning from orange to an eerie, unnatural blue. The waxen figure crumpled into the fire, its limbs curling inward as if in silent agony. A distant sound like a strangled gasp echoed through the chamber. And then, the laughter. It started as a whisper, a chuckle just beyond the edge of perception. Then it grew, a low guttural cackle that reverberated through the walls. It was neither male nor female, neither near nor far. It was everywhere. The woman stumbled backward, her breath hitching in her throat. "It is done," the leader intoned, extinguishing the candle with his fingers. The fire died instantly. The room was plunged into darkness. Somewhere, miles away, in the solitude of his home, the man awoke with a scream. His breath came in ragged gasps. His hands trembled as he reached for his chest, feeling a sudden, unbearable pressure. And then, the pain. Burning, twisting, as if unseen hands were gripping his heart. He clawed at his shirt, eyes darting wildly. The shadows in the room seemed to shift, moving closer, watching, waiting. The curse had begun. If someone wronged you beyond forgiveness, would you dare to take matters into your own hands? But remember, what you send into the darkness may one day come back for you. 5. Lust Ritual, the Summoning of Desire. The air was thick with the scent of sandalwood and jasmine, the kind of aroma that clung to the skin, intoxicating and inescapable. In the dim candlelight, the sigils on the floor pulsed faintly, as if alive, carved into the wooden boards with a precision only obsession could achieve. At the center of the room she stood, barefoot, draped in crimson silk that clung to her body like a second skin. The flickering flames cast shadows that danced along the walls, warping, shifting, watching. Her voice was steady as she began the incantation. "I call upon the force of fire, the hunger of the unseen, the passion that knows no bounds. Let my desire take shape. Let my will be made flesh." The words slithered through the room like unseen hands, pressing against her skin, wrapping around her throat like a whispered promise. She closed her eyes, focusing on him, the one she wanted, the one who had resisted for so long. She pictured his eyes, his lips, the way his breath would hitch if only he would see her. The candlelight flickered violently. Then, a presence. The air shifted, warmer, heavier, electric with something beyond human. She opened her eyes. A shadow, darker than the dimly lit room, stood before her. Not him, but something else, something older. It did not speak, but she felt its hunger, its amusement. A single candle blew out, then another. The room darkened, the walls closing in, suffocating. The silk against her skin tightened, as though unseen hands were caressing, claiming. The sigils beneath her bare feet grew hot. "What will you give?" The voice was neither a whisper nor a roar, but something in between, something that vibrated through her very bones. Her breath hitched. "Anything." The remaining candles flickered once more, then flared violently, their flames stretching unnaturally high, tongues of fire licking at the ceiling. The presence stepped closer. A hand, if it could be called that, rose, tracing an invisible line along her cheek. And then, it was gone. The candles extinguished. The room fell into suffocating silence. Her body trembled, not in fear, but in something far more dangerous. And then, the knock at the door. Her heart pounded. Slowly she moved, her fingers trembling as she reached for the handle. The door creaked open. There he stood. His eyes burned with something new, something primal, something unnatural. "I don't know why, but I had to see you," he said, voice thick with something between confusion and longing. She smiled, stepping aside. The ritual had worked. But in the darkness of the room, beyond the threshold of flickering candlelight, something watched. And it was still hungry. Would you risk calling upon forces beyond comprehension for the one you desire? But beware, the price of passion is never paid in coin. 6. Compassion Ritual, the price of mercy. The storm outside howled like a wounded beast, rattling the windows of the small candle-lit room. The air smelled of damp earth and burning wax, the heavy scent mixing with the faint iron tang of the ceremonial dagger lying at the altar's edge. Miriam's hands trembled as she traced the sigil before her, an ancient mark scrawled in salt, its meaning older than language itself. This was not a ritual of malice or lust. It was a plea, a desperate offering. Her brother lay on the bed behind her, drenched in sweat, his breath shallow, his skin waxy and pale. The doctors had abandoned hope, medicine had failed, but there were other ways, ways that required something more than faith. She raised the dagger, pressing the tip to her palm. "By my blood, I summon thee." The words were barely above a whisper, but they slithered through the air like serpents. "By my sorrow, I call thee forth." A drop of blood struck the sigil, and the reaction was immediate. The candle flames twisted, elongating unnaturally, their glow turning an eerie shade of blue. The room grew cold, not the kind of cold that made one shiver, but the kind that settled deep in the bones, that whispered of things long buried. The shadows in the corners of the room deepened, writhing as if alive. And then it arrived. A figure neither fully formed nor entirely unseen stood before her. Its shape flickered like a reflection in rippling water, tall, elongated, featureless, save for the deep sunken hollows where its eyes should have been. "You seek mercy," it rasped, its voice like wind whistling through a graveyard. Miriam's breath hitched, but she did not waver. "Yes, spare him. Take what you must, but let him live." A pause. The figure tilted its head, considering. A life saved. A debt owed. She swallowed hard. "What do you want?" The air around her thickened, pressing against her lungs like unseen hands. The figure moved closer, its presence pressing against her mind, against her very soul. "When the time comes, you will open the door." She didn't understand. What door? The thing did not answer. Instead, it smiled. A terrible, soundless gesture, something stretching beneath its not-quite face. Then, it was gone. The candles flickered back to their warm, golden glow. The sigil was nothing but a smudge of salt. The cold dissipated, and behind her, a gasp. Miriam spun around. Her brother sat up, eyes wide, chest heaving with fresh, clean breaths. The sickness that had been eating away at him was gone. It had worked. She wanted to weep with relief, but then she saw it. In the farthest corner of the room, where the light did not reach, a shadow lingered, watching, waiting, and deep in her mind, a whisper. "When the time comes, you will open the door." If you could save a loved one with a single ritual, but had no idea what price you would one day be forced to pay, would you still go through with it? 7. Satanic Wedding Ceremony, Bound by Darkness. The chapel was unlike any other. No stained glass, no holy crosses, no soft organ music. Instead, the flickering glow of black candles lined the room, casting long, wavering shadows across the crimson-draped altar. The scent of incense was thick, an intoxicating mix of myrrh and something more primal, something ancient. At the center of it all stood Victor and Celine, hands clasped, eyes locked. They had rejected the traditions of the world, choosing instead to forge their union not in the eyes of a god who demanded obedience, but in the presence of something far older, something that watched. The officiant, clad in dark robes, raised his hands over the couple, his voice low and rhythmic, carrying the weight of forgotten tongues. "By the forces of the abyss, by the will of fire and flesh, do you bind yourselves, not in servitude, but in power." Victor's grip on Celine's hand tightened. His heart pounded. "I do." Celine's lips curled into a smirk, her eyes gleaming like molten gold. "I do." The efficient motion toward the ceremonial dagger upon the altar, not a symbol of sacrifice but of will, of the blood they would spill together as equals. Celine took it first, dragging the blade across her palm. A crimson line beaded and dripped onto the altar stone. Victor followed, his own blood mingling with hers. Their union was not about submission or tradition. It was about choice, strength, the embrace of desire untainted by shame. With this blood you are bound, not to servitude, but to freedom, not to suffering, but to indulgence. Let none undo what has been sealed here tonight. A gust of wind howled through the chamber, though there were no open doors. The flames of the candles did not flicker. They burned stronger, stretching taller, as though pleased. And then, the final vow. From this night forth, may no chains bind us, no force break us. We walk together through fire and darkness, through pleasure and pain, by our will alone. As their lips met, the candles surged to life, their glow momentarily blinding. The room pulsed with something unseen, something powerful. The guests, figures cloaked in shadow, watched in silence, their faces obscured. And in the farthest corner, unseen by all but the most perceptive, stood something else. A figure with no name, no shape. But it had witnessed, and it had approved. Marriage is often seen as a sacred bond, but what if a union could grant power rather than submission? If you could forge a partnership under the watchful eye of something beyond human understanding, would you? 8. Satanic Funeral Rite, a celebration of the flesh. The funeral was unlike any other. No somber hymns, no mournful prayers pleading for salvation, no cries of regret. Instead, the chamber was alive with a slow, deliberate rhythm, a deep, throbbing drumbeat that resonated like the pulse of the earth itself. At the center of the gathering lay Lucian Blackwell, his body clad in the finest black silk, hands folded over his chest, a silver pentacle resting upon his sternum. He had lived without chains, without guilt, without bending his knee to any higher power. And now, in death, he would be honored, not as a soul seeking salvation, but as a man who had embraced the full measure of his existence. A woman in a crimson veil stepped forward, her voice calm yet commanding. "We do not mourn, for there is nothing to mourn. He has lived, he has conquered, he has indulged, and now he returns to the great nothingness, unshackled, unrepentant, and forever free." The onlookers did not weep. Instead, they lifted their chalices, filled with deep red wine dark as blood, and drank in his honor. The air grew heavy, the candles flickered, something unseen moved through the space. One by one, those gathered came forth, placing tokens of power upon his body, symbols of his achievements, relics of his desires, a whispered word of final indulgence. A gold coin, a lover's locket, a page torn from the Satanic Bible, all laid upon his resting place, not as offerings to an afterlife, but as testaments to a life well lived. Then, the final words. Lucien Blackwell leaves behind no regrets, no unfinished prayers, no shackles of sin. He was his own master in life, and he remains so in death. Let his name echo, not in sorrow, but in power. The flames of the black candles leaped higher, as if in approval. The air swelled with an unseen presence, thick with something that made the hairs on the back of the neck rise. And then, silence, deep, absolute, as if the void itself had opened to swallow the moment whole. A gust of wind blew through the chamber, though no doors had been opened. The candles flickered once more, then steadied, their glow unwavering. Lucian's journey was complete. No heaven, no hell, no judgment, just the endless expanse of oblivion, the great unknown. They say the dead linger when they have unfinished business, but what of those who die with nothing left undone? Do they truly disappear, or do they find another way to leave their mark? 9. Mass of Saint-Secaire, the ritual of ruin. The church had been abandoned for decades, its once grand stone walls now crumbling under the weight of time. The stained glass windows were shattered, their remnants lying in jagged pieces across the cold, damp floor. The altar, where prayers had once been whispered in devotion, was now a place of darkness, of whispered curses and forbidden rites. Tonight, a ritual older than memory would be performed, a rite spoken of only in hushed voices, feared even by those who did not believe. A lone figure stood at the altar, draped in a tattered black cloak, their face obscured by the hood's shadow. In one hand, they held a candle, its feeble flame barely illuminating the circle of hooded figures surrounding them. In the other, a small wooden effigy, crudely carved but unmistakable, a likeness of the one they wished to destroy. Blood for blood, breath for breath, name for name. The words were a whisper at first, slipping through the cold air like a serpent. Then others joined in, their voices rising in unholy harmony. The effigy was placed upon the altar, its wooden form gleaming with fresh crimson, blood drawn from the hand of the one who sought vengeance. The candle's flame flickered wildly, as if protesting the blasphemy unfolding before it. Then came the final words, the ones that sealed the fate of the cursed. By saint-secaire, patron of ruin, let their flesh wither, their breath fail, their life drain as this wax melts in the mouth of the damned. A second figure stepped forward, holding a black candle. With slow, deliberate movements, they pressed the candle's tip to the effigy's lips. The flame licked at the wood, and an acrid scent filled the air. The wax dripped, thick, dark, seeping into the cracks of the altar like venom. And somewhere, miles away, someone awoke in a cold sweat, their throat tightening, their limbs seizing as an unseen force gripped their body. The Mass of Saint-Secaire had begun its work. No one could say where the ritual had come from. Some whispered it was born in the dark corners of medieval France, a twisted perversion of faith. Others claimed it was older, passed down through generations of those who understood that true power came not from heaven, but from the depths of the human will. What was certain was this: those marked by the Mass of Saint-Secaire never died clean deaths. They wasted away, their bodies failing for no discernible reason, their minds unraveling as if something unseen gnawed at the edges of their sanity. And when they died, their lips were always slightly parted, as if something had been taken from them in their final breath. But tell me, if you had the power to curse your worst enemy, to make them suffer as they made you suffer, would you? Or would you fear the price that such darkness demands? 10. Ragnarök Rite, the fire that burns away the past. The torches burned with an unnatural intensity, casting long, writhing shadows against the towering stones of the ancient circle. Beyond the ring of fire, the forest loomed, silent and watching. No stars pierced the ink-black sky, no moon bore witness to what was about to unfold. A dozen figures cloaked in heavy furs stood motionless, their breath forming ghostly plumes in the frozen night air. At the center of the circle, a massive wooden effigy loomed, shaped like a warrior, yet twisted, its limbs bound with iron chains, its face carved into a grotesque screaming grimace. A man stepped forward, his long braided hair whipping in the frigid wind. His face was streaked with ash, his bare chest smeared with runes drawn in animal blood. In one hand, he held a dagger, in the other a bundle of parchment, pages filled with words of anguish, of sorrow, of hatred too great to be spoken aloud. The Ragnarök Rite was not a prayer, it was not an offering, it was war. The old gods whisper to us in the howling wind, in the breaking of the waves, in the crackling of the fire. They tell us, to be reborn we must first be destroyed. His voice was low, guttural, almost lost to the roaring wind. The others echoed his words, their murmurs blending into a rising chant. The man knelt before the effigy, placing the parchment at its wooden feet. The The dagger flashed as he pressed the blade against his palm, wincing as blood welled up and dripped onto the pages. "Let this be my past, my sorrow, my weakness. May it burn and be no more." He stood, his breath quickening, his pulse a drumbeat in his ears. Then, with a single strike of flint against steel, the fire was born. Flames licked at the edges of the parchment, devouring the words written in pain. The fire spread, racing up the wooden effigy, consuming its chained form in an unnatural, searing blue blaze. The chant rose to a fever pitch. The ground trembled beneath their feet. The air smelled of scorched wood and something else, something primal, something ancient. As the effigy collapsed into a heap of embers, the wind carried its ashes high into the void above. The man's chest heaved, his skin slick with sweat despite the cold. The burden he had carried for years, grief, fury, the weight of betrayal, was gone. In its place, only the fire remained. One by one, the others stepped forward, their own parchments in hand, ready to offer their demons to the flames. The Ragnarök Rite was not merely destruction, it was rebirth, a reckoning, a fire that burned not only the past, but the weakness within. But there were whispers, rumors, that sometimes when the fire died and the embers cooled, something remained. A presence, a shadow, a figure seen just beyond the flames, watching, waiting, for not all who burned their past walked away untouched. Some found that when they cast their pain into the fire, something else reached back. If you had the chance to burn away your past, your regrets, your pain, would you take it? Or would you fear what might be watching from the other side of the flames? 10 rituals, 10 glimpses into the unknown. Some were acts of devotion, others were invitations to something far more sinister. But one question lingers. Were these rituals merely symbolic? Or did they truly open doors that were never meant to be unlocked? We may never know for sure. But one thing is certain. The deeper we look into the darkness, the more it stares back. Now I ask you, which of these rituals disturbed you the most? And if you could witness just one of them in person, would you dare? Tell me in the comments below. And if you enjoy unraveling the chilling mysteries of the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because there are more secrets waiting in the dark, and I'll be here to uncover them. Until next time, sleep well, if you can.